You got to
All
light
right.
your cigar, up, huh? You
We
can't go
are.
without your cigar.
That's right. That's my signature. My signature. I don't know what. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but let's dive into this.
Let's do it.
So it's interesting. I had a conversation with one of my clients about this very thing today, pipeline, and how to keep it full, how to make sure that it's full. Because look, I'll take agency owners for example. Agency owners are notorious for filling up their schedule with clients and then not prospecting throughout, which leaves them with an empty pipeline, right? They get busy with customers, they just forget. And this happens with a lot of businesses. Like once you start the fulfillment process, you cannot forget about
Mhm.
prospecting, right? But
Mhm.
but we all have done it, I'm certain of it.
I've done it. I've done it twice in the past 12 months. Twice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. So when you say agency, you're talking digital or like a marketing agency or something?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see easily how it could happen, right? Because it becomes a lot of work to fulfill the what you've sold to them. But I think that and again, I mentioned it yesterday when we talked. I'm going to go back to it again today. Tim Grover talks about this in his book Winning, and if I sound like I've read it once or twice, it's because I think I've read it like 4 times now. um it's a great book. But where he says, when you win, you cannot take your foot off the gas, right? So if I equate winning to being a small business owner or an entrepreneur, I think getting clients, getting really good clients, and you've got this momentum and you're servicing those clients then, right? Neither you or I work in a business where it's not one or done, right? These are longer commitments. And so you get to a point where all of a sudden your calendar is full all the time because you've got a lot of clients. You still have to find time to prospect because those clients aren't staying forever. And so to me, having that full calendar is the winning that Grover is talking about. And taking your foot off the gas and not doing the prospecting is so detrimental to your business, because then you're going to end up in this valley, and pretty soon your business is just peaks and valleys, and you've got these times of desperation where you're like, we got to get a client, we got to find money, right? And so that constantly filling the pipeline, those consistent actions that small business owners have to do, really important. But I think most people hate prospecting. What I would refer to it as phase one of sales. I don't know what you call it, but just for me, I just call it phase one. It's basically the pre-sale, filling your pipeline up with people and getting them to the point where they're interested and you're going to write a proposal or make an offer to them, right? It's the
Yeah.
hardest part to me.
Yeah, it is one of the hardest parts because you're forming new relationships, you're getting to know one another, and it's the same cycle over and over. But what I was going to say is, like, how often do you run into other business owners that have the same problem?
All the time, all the time. And I think, but here's my question. Do you think it has more to do with the fact that, so most of the business owners that I'm engaged with, that Corey and I work with, there's very few people in the company, right? So there's only so much time in the day. And if you've got a lot of customers or clients, you're focused on those people. Or do you think it's I hate doing it, so any excuse to not do it, I'm going to avoid it? Or maybe it's a combination of the two, but we see it all the time.
I would say it's probably a combination of the two because it's like if you've ever talked to anybody that says I love making cold calls, they've never made cold calls because nobody loves making cold calls. But the other question I had for you was, do you think that how long is a reasonable, now I know it's different for every business, but a reasonable sales cycle, because this is really important. If your sales cycle is only, if your sales cycle, let's say it's 4 weeks, let's say it's 8 months or 8 years, either way, you got to know that, because if you give up after the fifth time of reaching out and the sales cycle is an 8 month long sales cycle, well, you're way, way short, right? So you got to know that.
Yeah. So and I could be wrong here based on my, obviously I haven't been doing sales my entire career. I think the length of your sales cycle very much has to do with the price of this product or service, right? So
Well, it could, but at the same time, if you're talking about a project that like Callie might be doing, that's just because he can't physically make the product and turn it around based on a couple of conversations in a matter of 2 weeks. I mean, he'd have to shut his whole plant down, and not to mention the fact you got to worry about getting material. Like it's stuff like that. It's things like that you've got to factor into the sales cycle. Where it becomes questionable is when we're talking about like what we do, services. There's not really a set sales cycle, and there shouldn't be an issue other than could be the money if they don't have the money naturally, but like software sales, like SaaS sales, right?
yeah.
Software sales, it's a long sales cycle. It could be a 2 year sales cycle, two
Well,
years.
but for I guess now I'm curious, like when you say what's the starting and end point of a sales cycle to you?
For me, it's the first time I speak to the person or I
And
have some
where's it
sort of
end?
interaction
Where's it end?
when they pay me. Well, that's not. Yeah, the sales cycle, in my opinion, it ends when they pay me because that's when fulfillment starts.
Okay. So depending on how people have the payment side of their product or service structured, like so I say our sales cycle begins at prospecting. So I may not even have a conversation with you yet, but I'm like, ooh, Corey Barrier needs what we're selling. So I'm going to start warming him up. I'm going to start engaging with him. We're not going to have an actual conversation on the phone or Zoom, but I'm going to engage with him, right? So you are on my list. You're in my pipeline. Maybe you're a lead who's warming up. I say you're closed when you say, yes, I want the service, and you sign the contract, or we get you the proposal. You may not have paid yet, but that's done. We know, all right, we're working with him. So for me, it would make sense. Like Callie's not doing fulfillment as part of his sales cycle. At least I wouldn't define it that way. His sales cycle is someone says, hey, I'm interested in working with you, or he's bidding on a project. Somebody puts out an RFP, and then it ends up that they sign a contract with him, right? That's his sales cycle. That's probably months for him.
Well, technically for him, he does things in sections. So actually for him, it's a little bit different because like he'll take a piece of the project and he breaks it down or he'll take the whole project and break it down to multiple steps, right? But the reason he does that is because if he doesn't do it that way and there's one little bitty thing that's off and it was in the second step, well, now everything he's made is completely got to be redone. So it doesn't make sense for him to make the product in full and then try and then try to deliver it, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Or
but
if
so are you suggesting that he's just doing the prototyping and then he's going through the sales cycle again?
sort of, because there's different parts of when he's yes, because the customer, like the customer, for example, is they want the product. Let's call it a widget, whatever. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
what it is. And they say, well, we want it in these specs. And he says, okay. He draws it up. Great. Next meeting, we're going to go over X, Y, and Z. All right. So here's the specs. And then he would go over the specs, right? And I'm just spitballing here. I don't know if it's exactly how he does it, but this is a general idea. And then the next step could be, we're going to map it out and understand who is supposed to be buying this thing. Who do you want to buy it, right? That is part of his sales cycle, right? Him figuring out what customer is going to buy the product. Because if because we all, when we have an idea, we think it's the best idea on the planet. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter if we think it is. It matters if the customer thinks it is.
Yeah. So I guess like, as far I don't let's abandon talking about Callie's sales process because his sales cycle, because I'm not familiar with it, right? And I think it looks different than I was thinking it was. But from my perspective, the sales cycle, I think, is, varying lengths. We can have clients that move really fast to work with us. We can also have clients that take 3 to 4 months to decide to work with us. It's not uncommon for us to have a conversation with somebody. They're not ready. They come back. I would say it's almost 50-50 for us in terms of people that work with us and they're like, yeah, I'm ready. And people that are like, I'm not ready yet. And then they'll come back. They'll be like, hey, I want to work with you.
So here, this is a great segue. So how do you know how long it's going to take, or how do you know? Well, you do because you ask, right? And they say, well, look, we can't do it right now, but hit me back on January because X, Y, and Z is going to come through and we're going to move forward.
Yeah. So listen, if they propose it that way, yes. So sometimes it's that they're just not ready, right? So as an example, we worked with a business owner to help him sell his business, right? He first reached out to us November of 2020 and we had a conversation. It went really well. And he was like, we're not quite ready yet. We'll get back to you when we are. I don't know what that's going to look like. We're like, okay. So, we moved it into we'll check in on him in, 3 months or 6 months or whatever. It wasn't until March that he signed with us. And when he did, it was just all of a sudden a call. And this happens every time. All of a sudden, it's just a call out of the blue. Hey, I'm ready. Let's do this. Right. So they leave, they got to get some things together. Maybe it's finances. Maybe they need to do something with their business, whatever it is. And then they come back. And that is very common. I can honestly, I would say at least 50% of our clients, that's the situation where they're, and that timeline is different for every one of them for how long it is before they come back. Right. So it was the same when we worked with a client who needed operational help. He initially reached out and then he said, you know what, I'm not going to do anything. And we're like, okay, we assumed it was closed. And then legit about 75 days later, he came back and said, okay, I'm ready to work with you guys. Let's go. Send me the contract. I want to sign it today. And I was like, okay. And that's how it happens. Right. So I think, people need to understand what I wish I could understand why it happens, because it's that common for us that it happens, and it makes it hard on that services side to have predictable revenue.
Well, here's what I would say to that. I would say that, and we just talked about this yesterday, the upfront agreement or upfront contract, in that you talk about, you figure out if they're the decision maker, you figure out what their budget is for the project. You also figure out when do you want to start the project? What time frame do you have in place to move forward? And if you don't know, take a guess, right? I mean, what I mean by that is I don't mean just pull something out of your rear, but like, in other words, if you know it's not going to be 6 months from now, and you know for a fact there's no way, because you're out of the country for the next 6 months, I would like to know that, right? I'd like to know if you know for a fact. That way it's in my pipeline to follow up with you in 5 months, right? Not, but if I don't know that, I might be sitting around for 6 months thinking they just ghosted me. And really, they're in Costa Rica on vacation for 6 months, right?
Yeah. I think also reflecting back on our conversation yesterday, this is a little bit where, that 50% people think that salespeople are pushy, and also that, being a farmer versus a hunter versus a scavenger, right? So maybe if I were a more seasoned salesperson, I might be more pushy. But the reality is, I think the way that we approach sales, and maybe this is me making an excuse for how I do it, I think the way that we approach sales works really well for our brand, right? In that almost everything we do from the perspective of how would we want this done to us, right? We don't like to get bombarded with emails. So we don't really send a lot of emails. Like if you're on our email list, you're probably getting one a month from us, right? We don't like to, I will cold call, but I have done it in the past, but we don't do it very often, right? So to be, that aggressive, pushy salesperson, and that's not even really being aggressive or pushy, is really not, it's not part of our nature. Like, I'll ask the questions, right? Do you want to move forward? You want a proposal? Are you interested? Does this sound like it's something that would work and that we could work together? Yes. Okay, we'll build a proposal. They get the proposal. They always, the most common question we get when we're doing like a discovery call with somebody is, what's it going to cost? And I think people think that we're, bullshitting them when we say, we don't know yet, but that's the reality, because we're building our pricing. We're not cookie cutter business, right? We're building a program, a solution for you. So we're going to build it, and then we figure out how can we package this so it's the most economical possible. And then we send a proposal with the pricing. We're really transparent in the proposal with the pricing, but that's just how we do it, right? So they may get it and think, oh, this is way harder or way more than I thought it was going to be or whatever. But, that's the part where typically once they get the proposal, there's usually a little silence, right? And I don't think our prices, I think our prices are ridiculously low, right? Compared to what someone else would charge. And especially when you consider what we're delivering, but still people have sticker shock. And they're like, okay.
Well, one way that you could overcome that is a comparison, right? So if you think about, and you'll have to give me an example here, what's somebody that's in your space that does very similar to things to you that charges 10 times the amount that you do?
I don't know what anyone else charges. We don't compete on price. Competing on price is just a race to the bottom, right? It's like,
Yeah.
Here's my favorite analogy. You seen the movie There's Something About Mary?
Oh, yes.
Remember when the two dudes are driving in the car and the guy's like, 8-minute abs, I'm going to create 7-minute abs?
You're not even going to believe that is I could sing you the whole song right now, and that's what hit my brain when you said that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, we don't compete on price. Like, I don't care what anyone else is charging. I know that what you get with us is different than what you're going to get from anybody else. I also am confident you're getting way more for your money than you are with us. I'm very confident in that. I've been in consulting long enough to know that. So even without knowing what someone else is charging, I know our prices are competitive. I know there's value in them. And I know that you're never going to find somebody who's going to give you the service you're going to get from us. It's not, I don't even question it. So I couldn't tell you, I could tell you, well, I could not tell you what someone else would charge for the things that we do.
Well, I would say that and look, I'm just being completely honest. It would be beneficial to know what the highest person in the market is charging, and this is why. Because if they say, what is the price? Well, if you decided to hire XYZ, I know the cost would be $500,000. And I can tell you that we're not near $500,000, right? So if you want to go hire them to go do it, that's what it's going to cost you. What do you think? And it's good because, and you can take the highest person that you can think of in your space and go check them out. The example they gave in this scenario was, hey, look, you can go hire Harvard Business School to do this, and they're going to charge you $100,000 a day. But you could hire me, and I'm going to charge you half that at most, right? Yeah. And that was similar to the example they gave.
We used to, so Corey and I used to work with this guy who him and his entire team did this thing that they called day rates, right? So they came in and they were helping to basically get a program back on the rails when Corey and I were working for a corporate company. And there was 4 of them. Between the 4 resources, their day rates exceeded $15,000 a day plus expenses. And every one of them was traveling from someplace like across the country. And they were like, in their contract, we fly first class, we stay at, the 4-star hotels, whatever. So a hefty bill. I can tell you our service way better than what they were doing. Right. And they were like 15 grand a day. A day. Didn't matter if they worked 1 hour or 10 hours, 15 grand a day.
That's
So,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, right. But so, and that's the reason that we actually started the company is because we we have always felt that most small business owners and entrepreneurs are priced out of really good service. Like most people, I don't know a lot of people, small businesses that can afford to pay 15 grand a day. That's big cash.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people turn their nose up when they hear the word consultant, because you have people out, and I'm not saying, I don't even know who you're talking about, and I'm not certainly not implying that they're doing anything wrong, because here's my thought process on it is, you know, your product or your service is worth what the market will pay for it.
Right.
And if that's $15,000 a day, have at it. If it's $500 a day, have at that, right? It is what it is. If you can't get people to buy whatever it is you're selling, it doesn't matter the cost of it.
Correct.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. I was going to ask you, I just had it was a brilliant question and I forgot it. It'll come back to me.
I do it all the time.
I can't remember what you said that made me think of it too. It was something that you said at the beginning of, when you were talking. But regardless, I think that you're right. It doesn't matter what you charge if nobody's paying it.
That's right. The other part to the pipeline too is, the follow-up process, that's still in your pipeline, right? Because it's not closed. So
Correct.
we haven't really discussed that, but that part's super important. And we may or may not have mentioned this yesterday, but if your strategy is to set up a funnel and you expect for that to close all your follow-ups, you're wrong. Like, will it help? Should, but it's certainly not a strategy to stand on. Not alone, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm curious when you think about I know what I was going to ask you. I'm going to ask it while I'm thinking of it. Which word do you think is dirtier, coach or consultant?
Ooh, they're both pretty nasty. I don't enjoy calling myself a coach because there's a lot of people out there that don't know what they're doing, and it makes people that like you and I that know what we're doing, it makes us look like we don't know, and it makes us untrustworthy, and I hate that. To be
Yeah.
perfectly honest with you, but if I try to fancy it up, it just looks like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think?
So I'm warming up to coach. I really have for a long time disliked it. I really hate the term life coach.
Oh, I do too.
I want to that makes me want to vomit. But I do think, being a business coach, getting better with that term. Because I mean, the reality is we have coaching and consulting and a hybrid where we're doing kind of both of them, right? So, the nice thing about consulting, you can charge more for consulting because you're doing the work. Coaching, you're teaching and answering questions and holding people accountable. So, but it's still, getting people where they need to go, right? Asking the right questions. So I don't know. I think probably coaching has the more negative connotation with it, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, God, after last year, there's no telling. I wish I knew the number of new coaches from 2020, but I can't even imagine because it feels like everybody and their brother says they're a coach of some sort or fashion. And it doesn't, I don't know. I don't love it. I really don't. I really don't like it.
Yeah,
but
it does feel like everybody's a coach. But back to your question of the follow-up process, that was what you asked, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How I do with that. I am okay with it. I definitely need to be better. I don't subscribe to the theory that you need to continuously remind people that you exist, right? I think if you're active on social. I think if you are authentic enough of a person, right? So if you call me or set up a call with me because you are interested in hiring me, I think my job is to make sure that you know that I truly can help you, right? I can help you solve whatever that pain is that you're feeling. And then you may need time to think about it, or you may want to compare with like 5 other people or 2 other, whatever it is, right? So as long as I've been authentic and I have been honest about what my capabilities are, you're going to remember me, right? And then you'll come back or you'll find somebody else. I still stand by what I said yesterday of I think people need to be better about, especially business owners, being transparent and honest about what they're doing, right? Like I will follow up with you. Hey, checking in, seeing if you've made a decision yet. Don't string me along. Just be like, I did. I'm going with somebody else. Okay, cool. I'm so glad you found somebody. Let us know if there's anything we can do in the future. That's exactly how I would answer it, right? I'm not interested. My first priority is making sure the person gets the help they need or finds the solution they need. It's not always going to be with us. We're not for everybody, right? We're kind of, we're gritty. We're a little rough and tumble. We swear.
Yeah, well, and at the end of the day, you probably don't want to work with everybody that you have a first meeting with, right?
No.
So it's not just that you're not for everybody. Everybody's also not for you, and I make that abundantly clear to people. Like,
Yeah.
I decide whether you come into my program or not, and I don't say that egotistically, but if you're not coachable, I'm not about to have you come in and ruin my success rate. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. I'll just tell you that I would rather you not spend the money with me than you ruin my success rate. I'm just not going to do it.
I'm in a coach a program right now, right? Where one of the people that's in the program, I'm in a couple of programs. So I'm not going to say which program I'm talking about. One of the people that's in the program, when I saw they were in it, I wanted my money back. Because I was like, this guy's going to ruin the program. This experience is ruined. And the first thing I did was reached out to the person who was leading the program. And I said, I don't want to be in this program with this person. He's going to ruin it for me. And to this leader's credit, he said, Julie, do you trust me? And I said, I do. And he said, I need you to trust that he's not going to ruin it because I am going to shut it down. And he's like, I just need you. And he has. And it's been I honestly wouldn't even know he was in there had I not, if I didn't see his name all the time. But it very, very, very true. So I think it's a great point that you need to control who's coming into your program or into your orbit as much as other people are doing it, right? And I think that's one of the things that newer salespeople think about is, are these people going to like me? As what I'm selling good enough for them? But it's almost like a job interview, right? So like you can interview me for a position in your company, but I'm interviewing you as much as you're interviewing me. And like, look, if you're a jerk, I don't want to work for you. So it's like, you can like me all you want. It's like, I'm not interested. So I think that's a really important point for a lot of people when it comes to sales. They need to think about that as well.
Yeah. And, absolutely. And look, I just scroll back for a quick second. Setting customer expectations, you do that for you and for them, right? In other words, whenever you're trying to figure out that time frame for the project, I don't want you to view, and this is so important, but I literally I think I already said I just had a conversation with somebody about this, but the question was asked to me, well, essentially the question was, how do I get more comfortable, prospecting and not feel like I'm bothering the other person? And I said, guess what? It doesn't matter it doesn't matter who you're calling. It doesn't matter what they're doing. You're still going to be a bother to them because you're an unexpected call. And here is the deal. If you're in sales, you've got to get used to interrupting people's day. That is the only way you're going to get their attention. And I don't mean rudely interrupt their day, but and I also don't mean hold them up for 30 minutes in the middle of their day. I mean, like, if you get them on the phone, it's a quick conversation to set a meeting, right?
Yeah.
But we think that and we probably are bothering them to a degree, but we're bothering them because we know our solution will solve a problem that they have. So is it really a bothersome thing? No, I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. And that kind of goes back to that whole theory of so if you're, whatever it is that you have, the product, the service, you owe it to the world, right? To provide that product or service to people, right? If that's because there are people that need it. And if that's the thing that you're here to do, you have to give people the opportunity to know it exists and to help them solve whatever the problem is that they have. So I don't look at things as much as I'm being a bother on your day. Where I really struggle when it comes to sales on that, phase one, because in all honesty, phase two and phase three, and I look at sales as being a 3-phase process, right? Phase two and phase three, where it's basically you're closing the deal is phase two, and then phase three is post sale, right? I'm actually pretty good at those 2 phases. But phase one, where I get a little bit sideways with myself, is I don't know where the line is between not enough and way too much as far as like reaching out and trying to sell, right? Like, I don't want to be aggressive because that's not who I am. But I also don't want to miss an opportunity because I didn't reach back out.
That's right. And yeah, I get that. I totally 100% get that. So would you say that, remember I said yesterday, 50% of buyers don't feel like salespeople are pushy. So now, if you really think about that, and you think about that dynamic, now does it seem like we're bothering somebody or feeling salesy or pushy if only 50% of people think that? Now you got a 50-50 shot of hitting somebody that doesn't feel like that.
Right. And again, like I said yesterday, Ryan Stewman says you keep asking till they say no or yes, one of the two, right? It's yes or no. And you talked about it yesterday. Don't give me a maybe, because that's a waste of my time.
That's right.
Yes or no. And yeah, so that's I really think, I don't know. I hover. I try and figure out what's the appropriate amount. And, I will say still some of the best tools that I've learned about sales have come from the, 7-figure sales room that you and Callie used to host on Clubhouse all the time, right? Where, I learned a lot. Like, I just used the other day hey, I'm closing your file. Right? Because I was like, I don't want to be the person who I'm not going to keep reaching out if you can't respond, right? We had a timeline. You said you were going to do something. I've held up my end. You're not doing it. Something has clearly changed for you. That's cool. Be an adult, say it, and then we can all move on. But I'm like, I'm not going to keep reaching out. So I'm just like, literally, I hope everything's well. I hope you found somebody to solve your problem that you were having. Best of luck. File closed. Thanks.
Did they respond?
No.
That's shocking, because usually that email, if I say, I'm closing, I'm Julie, I haven't heard from you, so therefore I'm closing your file, almost works every single time.
I've never had it not work before. I will say that. And I've used it multiple times, but it didn't work. And I'm like, I don't really, and it's okay. I just don't know.
I got another one for you.
What do you got?
All right. So if that, so based on your last experience yesterday or whatever you said you use that. So another one you could say is, or I would say to you is, I would say, in fact, I said this to you. As a matter of fact, I said this to you. Remember when I was in Florida and I messaged you about setting up a meeting with you and Corey and myself? And this is what I said. Julie, have you given up on our meeting? Have you given up on the project, basically? And would it be a ridiculous idea for you to book a time on my calendar by the end of today? And before you responded, you booked the time.
What was the project?
I was working with you and Corey on some sales stuff.
Huh. I don't even remember.
Yep, I swear. And here's it works, right? So if you say, have you given up on this project, it makes you feel, when you receive that, it makes you feel helpless, or it makes you feel like a quitter. It makes you feel like, well, no, I mean, I haven't given up. Why is this asshole saying I've given up? And I 99.9% of the time, I get a response from either one of those.
Interesting. I wrote it down. I'm going to try it. Yeah.
Because most likely they haven't given up on it. They just haven't. They just don't feel like it's, they just don't feel like getting back to you. And some people are just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like that with certain things. Like if I don't have to talk to you today and it's not something that's like a pain point for me, and I've got other stuff to do, I'm going to put it off. Like we have to think of, there are certain times when you have to look at situations from the customer standpoint.
Sure.
In prospecting, though, you cannot necessarily look at it that way. And the reason I say that is because if you do look at it that way, you think, just like you said earlier, you said, well, I don't want people bothering and, I don't want people calling me and hounding me about shit. So I don't do that. Right. But if you don't do that, somebody else is going to step into place. Right. Your competitor is going to sweep right in because they did follow up, or they did make that extra call, or whatever the case may be, and close it right out from under you.
Yeah, I don't know if that's always true, though. I mean, it might be, but I don't feel like that's, I don't know.
What do you normally ask whenever if you ever have a potential customer say, we just decided not to do it? Surely you ask them why.
Yeah. What? Absolutely.
Yeah, like what made you decide that? What's changed? In fact, the why question, I don't encourage people to use that at all. Don't ever. I don't like when people ask me why I'm doing something. Like I think that's offensive. It's like here's a great example. If I say, Julie, why'd you wear that sweatshirt today? Or if I say, Julie, what made you pick out that sweatshirt today? It's very different language.
Well, the reason I picked this one is because the Green Bay Packers are playing tonight, and so I'm honoring my team.
I can't see it, but I believe you.
Yeah, but I agree, and so it's the way you frame it, right? That matters. So, not why did you change your mind or why did you decide to go with that person, but I would frame it like this, right? So if I'm contending for your business and you go with someone else, the question I am most likely to ask is, what could we have done differently or better that would have made you select us? Right. And if they're like, well, this was this was about price, I'll be like, okay, great to know. Right. So, but typically we would know going in, like, hey, what's your budget? What are you expecting to pay for this? Right. And, but still sometimes they'll tell you that they've got the money for it. And then you find out they don't. That's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Right. People lie. People are liars, Corey.
Buyers are liars.
Yeah, they are. They are. But yeah.
It's so interesting to me.
It really is.
But, yeah, because if you think about it, I mean, we've all said yes to something that we had zero intentions of doing because the other person was either pushy or the other person was annoying. You just want to get away from them, right? You just want to get away from the person. So you're like, yep, I'll do it. Get away from me.
I try not to do that. I try not
Well,
to.
me too, but
Yeah, exactly.
but it happens from
It
time to
does.
time.
It does.
So,
So
well, I would say unless you have anything else, we can conclude
let's
this
wrap it up.
live. I like that. So where can I guess people can find you where they're looking at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. We don't have to tell people where they can find us. They can
Yeah.
find us right here.
They can find us here.
All right. So we'll do this again shortly.
We will. All right, cool.
All right.
Thanks.